You're putting on a brave face, but inside there are some business fears lurking in your mind.
Will I fail? Will anyone buy my course? Will my luck run out? We're talking about how these spooky fears are holding you back. Being an online business owner is full of ups and downs. Some days you can't imagine going back to your 9 to 5, and other days you want to burn your whole business to the ground. We get it.
Welcome to Chaos to Conversions, a podcast of practical, no BS strategies to grow your online business. Each week, we're chatting about launching, copywriting, mindset, and more, so you can make sense of the chaos and do more of what works.
Join the conversation and let's grow together.
Welcome back to Chaos to Conversions. If you're listening to this episode when it goes live, we are approaching Halloween, so we were feeling like a spooky theme was something that we needed. Thought we'd talk about business fears, kind of goes along with the spooky Halloween-ness of it all. But even if this is just a random Tuesday in like March when you happen to stumble across this episode, it's still relevant. We're not like actually focusing on Halloween related content here. We're talking about those like mental blocks that we get in business. Again, things like, will anyone buy my course? Will I fail? And what to do about them. And also just a little bit of relatability, how we face these in our own business as well. So we can jump right into the first fear.
Yeah. So one that I think Branda and I have both talked about over numerous times over the last couple years that we've known each other, and that I've also heard a lot of other people say, variations of this is, will my business fail? Will my luck with clients run out? What if if you're a service provider, what if every person that I work with fires me and then I have no clients? So I feel like this is probably one of the more common fears, especially if your business is full time or you actually need like a full time income, like you're worried about decreasing your actual revenue. I think this is definitely a super common thought. And it's really hard, I think, to definitely overcome this. This is where me personally, I've gotten into seasons of life. Summer 2023 comes to mind, but seasons of life where I have just ended up like taking on too many clients because I was worried that I would lose one and then like I wouldn't be able to get another one.
Yeah.
So I just ended up like nothing really bad happened other than I was working a lot. Like I just ended up overbooked and not really where I wanted to be.
I agree. I think I've definitely been there several times. I think every couple of months, this thought kind of pops into my head. Again,
Mhm.
especially if you're a service provider and you like lose a client or contracts are coming up for renewal, or like for me, discovery calls definitely haven't been as frequent this year. And so things like just things changing with the economy, with business, so many different factors affecting it. It definitely kind of brings out that like, holy cow, like was I just really lucky this whole time? And now all of a sudden my luck is dried up and this whole thing's gonna crash and burn. So I do think it's kind of hard to fully get rid of this fear. But I think there's some things that like you kind of do to move past it. I don't know what's worked for you in the past.
A couple things that I feel like we've talked about. I mean, so far, I should know this, but I feel like I don't. Did we start our businesses like the same time, Brandon? Mine was November 2020. When was yours?
No, no, no. You started, I think, a year or two before me. I started in
Okay,
like 21, but while I was still teaching. And then 22 is when I went full time.
got it. Well, I did it part-time because I'm very cautious to do, I feel like, everything. So I was actually taught 2 school years, one full-time and then one part-time while doing my business because it just
That
took
is
me like
crazy.
yeah, it
But I
was
get
it
it.
was
I get it. It happens.
it was a wild time
Yeah.
because like I had this fear, like what if it doesn't work out? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's really hard if you're considering leaving. I mean, for me, which was a good teaching job. Like
Hmm.
I loved my district, I loved my kids, I loved my school, I loved my principal. I mean, and I was actually paid pretty damn well too for, for where I lived and all the benefits, like health insurance and stuff like that, things like that. So I think something that has maybe helped me is just like actually looking at the facts where everything so far, knock on wood, right? But everything has worked out so far. I have never actually lost every single client that I've had. Like, that's not a thing that's ever happened. I mean, some of you probably know this about me, some of you who know me a little bit more personally. Like, I have a irrational fear of flying. I hate flying. I don't want to do it, but I love to travel. So that part sucks. And I have flown and I have traveled a lot, but it's just like, it's the same kind of thing that I do with flying. Like, flying's you're way more likely, we're going down a rabbit hole now, but like I'm way more likely to be killed by my Uber driver on the way to the
Yeah.
airport than I am in an actual plane. So I use some of the same tactics when thinking about like losing all your clients or your business going under. Like, it hasn't happened so far. There's no evidence to suggest that it will
Yeah.
actually be that bad.
And I think I definitely am the same way. It's like, okay, clearly this has happened. I actually was in a mastermind last year, and that was a really big piece that she talked about was like remembering the facts. But she also was really big on just like the positive thinking aspect, which I don't want it to be like this toxic positivity. Like, doesn't mean you can't vent about it or stress about it. You definitely can. Again, this is a very common fear. But at the end, it doesn't help you to sit and like stew in this fear because that's when you're going to start taking on clients that you really don't need to be working with, or you're going to start making weird changes. Like, I'm just going to lower the price of everything. And you're creating
Mhm.
more chaos in your business than you're helping yourself. So sometimes it just helps to like go and see the negative thoughts and go, yep, I hear you. That is a legitimate fear. But also, I put a lot of work into my business and I know that I can be successful. I've been successful so far. I believe in myself and I'm just going to have to move forward thinking the best of myself and of my business instead of making really crazy changes out of anxiety and out of fear. That usually doesn't end very well. And I think the last thing is kind of just like taking action. And I think we actually talked about this recently, maybe towards the beginning of the year. There were kind of like some nervousness. I was feeling some nervousness around booking clients. And I was thinking, like, what should I do? Like, I don't know how to go about this, but I need to like fill this spot. And so I just went back again to like taking action. What has worked in the past for me? And then how can I go ahead and do that now? Is there something I can do differently in my marketing? Can I reach out to old connections? Can I change the pricing? Not without being totally crazy, right? Don't like drop it by like insane amount. And that's what I did. I ended up reaching out to some old clients and kind of reminding them that I was here. And that ended up filling up some spots for me. So actually do something helpful for yourself when you have those different anxious thoughts coming up. So, another really common fear that we want to talk about is what if no one buys my course or my product or my service? And I think in a lot of ways, owning a business is actually like a really vulnerable thing because you're throwing yourself out there and you're hoping that people are going to see the value in something that you've put so much thought and effort and work behind. But I think how that thought can hold us back is when we focus on the fact that no one's going to join this and that's where we sit. We forget to make it a great experience for those who do. Like we focus so much on like no one's going to do this, so then we don't actually celebrate the people who do come in, or we almost make it a self-fulfilling prophecy because we just don't talk about it. We're like so scared, no one's going to join my workshop, no one's going to buy my service, so then I don't talk about it and then therefore no one knows it exists and no one can join it and buy from us. So obviously, Melanie, you work with a lot of people who do promote courses and workshops. And from your experience, what have you kind of seen? I guess where have you seen this fear show up? And then how have you helped people overcome that?
Yeah, it's just so real. And I mean, I think I've been there, you've been there with like your own stuff, but it really does become a self-fulfilling prophecy because and I get it, I get it. You're afraid to put it out there. So because it is, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, because I mean, to a degree, it's embarrassing if nobody buys.
Yeah.
Not that everyone will know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's really no way for people, to know how many people buy unless you tell them. But people get nervous that people aren't going to buy and then they don't talk about it. So
Mm.
then nobody buys. The other kind of thing that I feel like I've seen a lot is you really do need to be confident in your course, product, or service. It seems not silly, but it will come across a screen if you are not truly confident in what it is that you're selling. And that I think is, not because you think it's crap. I mean, of course, 99% of people who put out a course, product, or service, like they think they're going to do a good job, and like you probably are, and it's probably fine. But there is still, and I get this too, like a little teeny voice in the back of your head, like, well, is this like actually going to help people?
Mm,
Like, does this actually solve the problem?
mhm.
Especially if like nobody's purchased before and it's like your very first, thing that you're putting out there. So it is really scary. And it's, to quote Taylor Swift, I mean, you really got to like fake it till you make it with the confidence. Just remember how much work you put into whatever it is you're selling, and that you do know your stuff, and that it actually will help the people who it's designed for. So once you can kind of get over that little hurdle and feel confident, it took me, like with Create a Workshop That Converts and people creating live workshops to, sell standalone or launch into other things. I mean, to be honest, I was nervous at first, but then once people actually started selling their live workshops and we're seeing like the engagement with it and it went pretty well, it became a lot easier to like talk about and to feel confident in like promoting that because I knew that it worked. But
Yeah, I
it's not
agree.
easy. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. But also, if you don't like the thing you're promoting, then stop promoting it. Because
Yeah,
I've also been there
stop
too.
doing it. Yeah, stop
Where you're
doing
like
it.
not actually super in love with the thing that you're talking about. And then like that also makes you anxious because you're like, well, no one buys it. And I actually don't really know that it's that great. Not that I promote
Yeah.
things I don't like, but I've been there creating things and I'm like, I actually really don't love this. Like, so should I? No, I shouldn't like go out there because of course I'm like worried about this because I'm like feeling like there's something missing. I'm
Mhm.
feeling like it's not my best work. So I'm not gonna, why would I put myself in the position to promote something that I feel like could be better?
Yeah,
So
exactly. And when we're talking like specifically about not even like launches, but just stuff that we're promoting, I mean, let's at least be realistic about why.
yeah.
Like, was it bad timing? Do you like what you were just saying? Do you need to add something to it? I mean, there's definitely like outside factors that influence stuff. But I mean, like it could also be, I hate to say it, but it could also be your offer. So make sure that like your audience asked for it, that you've
Mhm.
done market research, but also like keep in mind that every single person who has a business has experienced like straight up failure. I know we've talked about it before, but like my hiring templates and like mini course that I wanted to do that I pre-sold for Black Friday, that zero people, not one person. So I mean, like that was a big old fail that did
Yeah.
not work out. Have you ever had like something just tank?
Yes, I definitely have. But it kind of in the other way. I mean, I don't know that I've talked about this on the podcast before, but Melanie definitely knows. I had a
Let's put it
membership that
out
I
there.
started.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I really genuinely wanted to do a membership and I had all the plans for it and then I got into it and a couple months in I was like, I hate this. Like I hate staying on top of these
Yeah.
things. Like it is bringing so much stress to my life. So I kind of changed it over to this just lifetime access thing. But it's just always been one of those things that I'm like, I know now that a membership is just not the thing for me. I don't like to feel, it sounds bad, but I don't like to feel responsible for putting something out every month because like life happens. And sometimes I'm like, I
Mhm.
just don't have the time. Unless you plan, I think the ideal way to do a membership is just have like the shit done for like 6 months in advance. And so
I
you're
say
not
a
doing
year.
it as is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the best way to do it, but I just didn't do it that way. And it was really stressful. But that made me nervous because I did promote it I think one more time afterwards where I was kind of thinking like, I don't know if I really love this idea, but like I've built it and I want to love it. And
Mhm.
yeah, it just brought like a lot of anxiety to me and that I ended up kind of changing I don't know, it's a whole thing. But it really did teach me a lot about like what works for me. And I feel like I don't know, I could easily like be embarrassed by that, but it was like I had to just try it before I even realized if it was something that was going to be good. People did buy it. They were showing interest in it, but there was a lot of nervousness and questioning from me because I felt like this is adding stress to my life. So launching can be kind of tricky in that way.
And the other thing to think about when you're concerned or worried about, like, what if nobody buys my course, my service? What if, nobody joins my program? Is like also be realistic. Did nobody join? Like, was it me in the hiring templates and literally nobody joined? Or was it a group program that you hoped to get 10 people signed up for and 3 people joined? So you feel like nobody joined
Mm,
and you're disappointed, but still 3 people joined. So you should focus on, I know it's disappointing. I get it. I've been there, but like focus on the people that said yes, ask them why they said yes, really handhold them. I mean, this is with an example of a group program, but really handhold them and make sure that you make their experience in whatever you're offering the literal best it can be to get amazing testimonials, follow up with them and literally ask them like, you joined and I'm so excited. Why did you decide to join? I have one client, and she's going to know it's her, but it's okay. But I have one client who's wanted to start a mastermind. She's been in her space for 10 years now, and we've put out interest forms and she really wants 10 people. And each time we only get like 5 or 6, and she doesn't want to do it until she has 10 people, which like I get because she doesn't feel like it's worth her time and she's really busy. So I get it. But also, I like just kind of wish she would, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because once you can get those couple people in and get the momentum going, I mean, it's not my life. I'm not going to like pressure her to do this mastermind that she doesn't feel like is worth her time. But there's still interest every time. You know what I mean? It's just not like the level that she wants. So be like actually honest with yourself. Was it like a complete failure or are you just disappointed in the results that you did get?
Yeah. I think that's also a really good point. And it kind of goes actually into the next kind of fear that we're talking about, which is what if I embarrass myself or what if, like, why would anyone want to listen to me? Because I do think that a big piece of launching something, whether it be a new product or service or whatever it might be, is like we are afraid of embarrassing ourselves. Because again, business is really vulnerable in a lot of ways. And you're thinking, well, it's embarrassing if I only had 6 people instead of 10 people. That's what I wanted to have. So this actually kind of moves us into the last fear, which we're going to talk about, which is what if I embarrass myself or why would anyone listen to me? Because as Melanie kind of briefly touched on, there can be some feelings of embarrassment around launching, whether it be a product, service, etc. Because again, you think, well, I need 10 people in it to make it seem worthwhile to me. And maybe it feels embarrassing if you only get 2 or 3 people. And as we talked about, I feel like business can feel really vulnerable because you're putting yourselves out there. It feels really risky. You're like, what if I say the wrong thing? What if I promote this and no one joins? I think because of that feeling of embarrassment, we stop ourselves from potentially taking really great opportunities, from reaching out to people who could be help us grow our business. I don't know. I just feel like we kind of like stand in our own way when it comes to growth. So I don't know if you've ever had that. I've definitely sometimes felt really embarrassed. Even recording this podcast today, I feel like I've said embarrassing things.
Yeah. I mean, like we've said numerous embarrassing things today. I can't, I mean, I've definitely experienced this to be clear. I can't think of as quite as a concrete example as I have for like the other two. But I mean, I definitely experienced this going like guesting on other people's
Yeah.
podcasts because I think the first podcast that I was on was that mastermind that we were both a part of, and she like invited everybody to come on. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, I don't want to do that. But I did it, but I don't want to. And then,
Yeah.
turns out I actually like really liked guesting on podcasts. And then I joined, I guested on, I think 10 more later that year. And then I was like, hey, Brandon, we should start a podcast. You're like,
Yeah.
well, I guess. So, you don't really know. It's like trying to get your kids to try broccoli, but with business.
Yeah,
You
for
don't like,
sure.
you don't know what you like or don't like a membership until
Exactly.
you try it.
Yeah, and I think kind of going back to that, I think again, I said earlier, I've had some like embarrassment around the membership thing. I'm like, God, what do people think about me? That like I started this and that I changed it and like I decided I'm not promoting it anymore. I still add things every once in a while for people who have like the lifetime access, but like I don't promote it because I know it's not the thing I'm like super passionate about. But like, should I be really embarrassed by that? And I think what I remind myself and what I'm reminding everyone listening to this as well is that we are our own worst critics
For sure.
and no one is like judging and evaluating us as much as we judge ourselves. I think, especially when you're a business owner is posting online and you're sharing things and you have a quote unquote audience, right? Like we feel like everyone's seeing every single thing that we do. And so we sit around thinking like everyone's remembering that launch that we had that no one joined. And everyone's remembering the time that I had a membership and then I decided I don't want to have a membership anymore. But like, I don't think most people probably remember that. And if they do, they're probably not sitting around thinking about that.
I mean,
But
I feel like that's totally true. Like, even people that I can't even think of anyone in particular, like, I'm not thinking of anyone in particular when I'm saying this, but even people that I've noticed
yeah,
who have either like launched something and then like never launched it again. And
yeah,
also, like, I'm a creep, so I notice that stuff, or like people who promote stuff and like don't do it again. Like, even if I can remember it, like you said, I'm not like sitting around being like, well, I remember back in October of 2021
yeah,
when, even if, because we're all business owners, right? So even if like somebody did launch a mastermind one time and they, I don't know if they ever got people to join or not, but they like never launched it again. I mean, I might think to myself, like, they never launched it again, but I'm not like judging them.
yeah.
And you're probably not like our collective audience is probably not judging other people either. So, I mean, like you said, you're your absolute own worst critic for sure.
Yeah. And I think if you're feeling embarrassment or hesitation because when it comes to like talking, like maybe collaborating on something or joining a podcast, I mean, I think I like blacked out the first time I ever did a podcast episode, to be quite honest with you. So I totally get the like anxiety around that. But again, we're our own worst critics and we're going to like listen back to something and be like, oh my God, I sound so stupid. And maybe you do sound kind of stupid the first time you talk about things, especially when you're in the beginning of your business. I've grown like so much in the past 3 years of doing business. There were things that I talked about and said at the beginning that I truly believed and I stood by, and my opinions have like evolved over time. Not that I was like lying or had bad opinions, but like I've learned more, my opinions have changed, I've grown, I've gotten more expertise. And so I'm going to sound better. I'm going to talk better than I did 3 years ago. And I hope
Sure.
that in 3 years, I'm looking back and saying, wow, Branda then knew nothing and she's grown so much, right? Like that's just a part of being human. So like cut yourself some slack if you feel like, well, who am I to talk about this? Why should I be on a podcast? Because you do know something and you do have something worth talking about. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be, I don't know, all knowledgeable about everything.
The fears we sit in can hold our businesses back. You'll always have worries. That's just part of being human. It's what you do with these worries that actually matters.
If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Reviews help us grow and they also give us the warm fuzzies. So go on, leave one. Thanks so much for joining our conversation today. If you enjoyed this episode, please head to your listening app and leave a quick rating and review.
If you're on Instagram, share this episode and tag us at Duxbury Digital and at The Relevant Collective. We'd love to hear from you. We'll meet you back here next Tuesday for more practical strategies to take your business from chaos to conversions.